Hi, guys, and welcome back to the Red Mist podcast. Hope you guys are doing well. I am Seshadri, and it is the 9th of September, just 3 more days before the Premier League officially comes back. And, we're done with international football. The Premier League season's about to start, and everyone's been sort of giving their predictions for the upcoming season, basically. And we've covered a little bit of that in some of our previous episodes with Ben, with Sean as well. And I thought, just to be extremely original, I would do a Premier League season table prediction because like I said, it's a very original idea. Nobody's ever done it on YouTube before. Nobody's ever done a podcast like this before. So I just thought I would give you what I think would be the Premier League table. And I think this should make for an interesting listen because, first of all, I'm predicting all 20 positions. And so there's going to be there's going to be 3 teams who would be very, very disappointed with my predictions. There's probably going to be a couple of others, who want to challenge my predictions. And, at the end of the year, when I do look back at these predictions, and I know there'll be an episode as well, at the end of the year, looking back at the predicted table, and, we can see how much of an idiot I was to predict some of the things that I did. But, I'll be predicting all 20 positions, like I said, and I'll try and give as many reasons as I can without making it too long for each of these positions. And without further ado, let's just get right to it. So I'm going to be starting these predictions from the bottom. So I'm going to start from 20th and then work my way back up all the way to first, which, by the way, it's a Liverpool podcast. So you can probably guess which way I'm leaning. But you know what? I'll explain the reasons for everything. So you can definitely see that my predictions are not clouded by my own loyalties. But you know what? Let's just start with the bottom 3. Now, I hate doing bottom 3 predictions because it's always disappointing to predict. It's not nice to predict that a team would go down essentially and go back to the championship or go to the championship depending on whether they got promoted this season or not. But in 20th place, I have Fulham. Now, Fulham obviously won the playoffs against Brentford and then got promoted. So if you're a Chelsea fan, that might be good news for you in terms of my predictions, because at least you don't have another West London team there competing the season after. But I look at this Fulham team, and they were not the most impressive team in the Champions League, in the Championship. And they haven't significantly improved this. Now, what I will say is, they didn't make the same mistakes they made last time they got promoted. Last time they got promoted, they signed a whole bunch of players. Jean-Michel Seri, I remember Andre Schürrle was there. You've got Ryan Babel and things like that, and players like that. And, at least they haven't made those mistakes. But this window, they've signed Anthony Robinson from Wigan. Now, obviously, Wigan's, a couple of divisions down. It's a big step up. They've signed Mario Lemina from Southampton on loan, who... he didn't quite have as impressive a season as some of the other players that maybe were within sort of the purchase range of Fulham. Harrison Reed again from Southampton. I think this could potentially be good, but I just don't see how Fulham overcome the obstacle of the Premier League, because, like I said, they weren't the most impressive team in the Championship. They were not the most dominant team in the Championship. They got through the playoffs, yeah, but they weren't exactly, killing it in the league before that. So Fulham, I think, would be, for me, I think Fulham this year, at least, I just don't think, I think they're missing something. They're missing more than something, in my opinion, to be honest, to go down. And they should, I think they will go down. And I am having them as 20th. Now, in 19th, I'm going to put Aston Villa. Now, this is a little bit of a controversial pick, I suppose, because Aston Villa did manage to avoid relegation last year. Just about avoided it. They have bought Matty Cash from Nottingham Forest, who could turn out to be a very good signing, but I just don't think they've strengthened in the areas that they needed to. Now, defensively, Aston Villa was really bad, and that was one area they needed to strengthen during this transfer window. And Matty Cash is okay. I think he's a left back from Nottingham Forest, but their problems were at centre back, and you needed a more commanding defender, somebody maybe that one of the big teams didn't want, or things like that. So they've not really made smart signings, in my opinion. I don't think they've strengthened in the areas that they have. Now, Jack Grealish is going to be really, really key for them. Now, they did get a little bit unlucky, McGinn getting injured, I think about for a while it was last season. And I think if McGinn and especially if Grealish get injured this time, even for I'm talking even for a month maybe, or even for 2 months, and if it's a difficult month, if it's a difficult 2 months without those players, I think they're in real trouble. So I think Aston Villa can stay up. It's just I just don't see them having improved enough to avoid a relegation battle again. And I just looking at the teams sort of in and around the relegation battle, the teams that I think would be in and around the relegation, but I just don't see how. I just don't see how Aston Villa can stay up. Honestly, I just don't. I just don't think they have the team to now. That will obviously make Jack Grealish hot property when the next summer window comes around. But we'll get to that if it happens next year. But I just don't think Aston Villa have what it takes to stay up. So I've put them down at 19th. And in 18th, if you're a Wolves fan, you'll be delighted to hear this. West Bromwich Albion, that's my third and final candidate to get relegated. Now, I will admit, this is... I do like West Brom. I watched them a couple of times in the Championship last year. They play some really good football. They play really attractive football. So I'm not saying, they play, tiki-taka like Barcelona, like prime Barcelona, but they do have... They have what it... they could stay up, but I think the gulf in quality between the Championship and the Premier League is just too much. And I know they've signed some really good players. They've signed Cedric Kipre from Wigan. They've signed Grady Diangana from West Ham and Matheus Pereira from Sporting Lisbon. Exciting signings, all of them. But I don't see how... West Brom, I think they're going to have to really punch above their weight if they want to stay up. I think they can, which is why I've put them 18th. I think they can, but a couple of things. So one of the things that sort of went against them, they're a team that has to punch above their weight because they play good football. Like they're not the West Brom of Tony Pulis. So they don't sit back, 2 banks of 4. They don't do that. They play good football. So if it works, it could work. It could work really well. And, we've seen teams do that in the past. We've seen Swansea do that under Brendan Rodgers. We've seen Sheffield United under Wilder last year. So I think they can do it. It's just I don't know if they have the players to do it. So I think with better quality players, it might have been a better chance of them staying up. But that being said, I still think they'll be better than Aston Villa and Fulham, which is why I've put them 18th. Now, in 17th, I've gone for Brighton and Hove Albion. So that is a South Coast team. Made some interesting signings. Adam Lallana on a free transfer. Joel Veltman is a brilliant transfer for them. They're getting an international centre back, so that will help them a lot. Lars Dendoncker from Bruges as well, and Jensen Weyer, who's a very good player from Wigan. So look, I think they'll just about avoid relegation. I think they've got a good system of way of playing. Graham Potter is again. See, it's the same problem with West Brom. In terms of they both have good styles of play, but I just don't know if they can make it work with the quality of players. Now, personally, I think Brighton have a slightly better squad than West Brom, which is why I've gone for them to avoid relegation and just sort of stay in the Premier League this year. Now, I know some of the other people have had Brighton sort of a little bit higher up, in 15th and things like that. I don't think they'll reach that far, simply because the teams that I have in 16th and 15th and beyond, it's just the gulf in quality, again, like I said, between Brighton and those teams is quite a lot. And what I expect is for these 4 teams, Brighton, West Brom, Aston Villa and Fulham, to be involved in a relegation battle. And I expect there to be at least about 4 or 5 points before between 16th and 17th. And I'll get to which team I've put in 16th and why I've put them there. But I expect there to be at least a little bit of a gap there. And I think that'll just show over the season. And I think last season being Graham Potter's first in charge of Brighton, I think teams were sort of still taking their time to figure it out. I think second season Brighton's going to be finding their task a little bit harder. And I know they have a way of playing. They have a style that they want to play. And I think that's good. I think they can do that. It's just I don't know if and I think the only reason I would put them as staying up is because West Brom, I just don't think they have the squad in comparison to Brighton. But it's very, very close. So if you switch around 17th and 18th, I wouldn't be too mad. But my prediction is Brighton stay up. And I think they're significantly better than Aston Villa. So I think there's no question there. In 16th, I've got West Ham United. Now, on paper, West Ham is a lot better than a lot of other teams. But what I would say is that they're a team that's perennially underachieving for the quality of squad that they have. Haaland's underachieved. Declan Rice had an okay season. He was all right. I think he was their best player at times. Michael Antonio as well. But I think they just underachieve as a team, which it's kind of sad to see. I think West Ham, in a way, I don't hope for a team's relegation, but I think if West Ham were to be involved in a relegation battle and actually get relegated, I think that might bring about the changes that West Ham needs as a club, because I think they've gone a little too stale. They haven't spent much in this window as well. They've got Tomas Souček from Slavia Prague and Osama Ashley from Wimbledon. Don't know how much of a role Souček is going to play, especially. I think he will. And he does improve their squad a little bit, but I don't see West Ham as being miles above other teams in terms of the way they play, because even though they have a much better team and they should be finishing higher up, I don't know if they will. They've not given me the confidence to say that they will. In 15th place, I've gone for Leeds United. Now, you guys must be wondering, a newly promoted team, 15th place, and I think it'll be a comfortable 15th place. Like, I think Brighton downwards, which is 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th, is going to be in a relegation battle. West Ham's a coin flip at this point. They could be comfortably mid-table along with Leeds and, the teams above them. And, could be a little ways clear of Brighton. Or they could be involved. They could be the fifth team involved in a relegation scrap, but they get out of the relegation scrap quite comfortably, with maybe like 5 or 6 games to spare. So West Ham could go either way. But I just think Leeds United will finish ahead of West Ham. I think they have a very, very good team. They have a very good manager. It's a newly promoted team and his style can backfire a little bit. So if things don't go well, then maybe they could end up in a relegation battle. But they have signed a lot of good players though. Rodrigo from Valencia is obviously the biggest one. They've got Robin Koch from Freiburg. They've got Jack Harrison from Man City. They've got Helder Costa from Wolves. So they've made some Elian Meslier as well from Lorient. So they've got some really good players. I'm not entirely sure they have what it takes to upset, I guess, the mid-table regulars like Southampton, Burnley, guys like that. But I think they have what it takes to finish above West Ham and definitely above Brighton. And with the management that Bielsa has, with the experience that Bielsa has, I think they should comfortably finish within 15th, and they should be a mid-table team. And you know what, just sort of making these predictions about mid-table teams, everything from, I guess, 16th up all the way till 10th, I would say, is very interchangeable in my predictions. So, there's going to be a lot of these games where, there's no teams. If you look at these 6 or 7 teams, you can't clearly say in a game between two of them, one of them's a clear favorite. At least not at this point in the season. Maybe after the season starts, form, injuries, all those stuff come into account. But I think at this point, you can't really say one is a clear favorite as opposed to another. So, there's a lot of interchangeability in my predictions. I personally think Leeds will finish 15th and they'll be in a mid-table team. And they'll be comfortably above relegation, I think. So we're talking about 6, maybe 7 points above relegation. But yeah, I don't see a relegation battle like last year where, I think there were about 6 or 7 teams involved and anyone could have gone down pretty much. I don't see that happening this year. I think there's different tiers of Premier League teams, and I think the Premier League table at the end of the year is going to reflect that. In 14th place, I have Southampton. Now, Southampton last season, they had a lot of good performances with Danny Ings. He did so well, he almost won the Golden Boot. But I don't think Danny Ings can do that again. Now, I'm not saying he can't get to 20 goals. I think there was this incredible run where he had about, I don't know what it was. It was like he scored in like every single game, one after the other, for a couple of months. Now, I don't know if Danny Ings can do that again. I think he might get to around 20. He might get to even if he gets to 15 or 16, I think that's a good season for Danny Ings. But yeah, they've lost Pierre-Emile Højbjerg to Tottenham. They've lost Cedric to Arsenal. Obviously, they lost him a while back. Mario Lemina wasn't really key. But I mean, Southampton as a team, I think they've made permanent Kyle Walker-Peters as well, and Mohamed Salisu. Oh, by the way, Mohamed Salisu looks quite exciting for Southampton, so that could be a buy that works out really well for them. I think they have enough quality in the squad, and Hasenhüttl is a very good coach. Plays some good attacking football. I think personally they will finish 14th. I think they're a comfortable mid-table team at this point. At this point, maybe even I can see Leeds, if things don't go their way, maybe I can see them being involved in a relegation battle. But I think Southampton upwards is a definite mid-table finish for them. 13th, I see Burnley. Now, Burnley, I just can't see them getting relegated with Sean Dyche at the helm of it. I can't. Because they just have a team that's really, really good. To be, I'm not saying they're going to be challenging for Europe, but I think the way they play, Turf Moor obviously is a very difficult place to go to. I just think they have enough to finish 13th, maybe even get to 10th if they have a good run of results. I don't see that happening, but I think Burnley is just really, really good. Not many I mean, they've got a few signings, but not anyone that immediately stands out. So we'll see. But like I said, all these places are very interchangeable. So Southampton could finish above Burnley, Leeds could finish above Burnley, but I just don't see Burnley dropping below 15th. And personally, for me, I think Burnley is going to be 13th. In 12th, I've got Newcastle United. Now, this is a little bit of a punt. I can't lie, because a lot of people, and I've seen this a fair amount, a lot of people have Newcastle closer to relegation than to the top half. And I've got Newcastle in 12th, which is a little bit of a punt, but I just think they've improved their squad massively. All the attention this transfer window has gone to Chelsea, and rightly so, because they've spent a lot, they've got a lot of quality players, and overall, if you look at Chelsea, and I'll get to them in a little bit, but they've improved their squad a lot. But I think Newcastle, what they've done is they've equally done a very, very good job. They've got Jeff Hendrick from Burnley, they've got Callum Wilson, they've got Ryan Fraser, they've got Jamal Lewis. They've addressed weaknesses in their team, and I think Steve Bruce has sort of left his mark now. And I think a lot of people are doubting Callum Wilson. In terms of, he's Premier League experience, but last season he wasn't that great for Bournemouth. I think he'll be really, really good, because I think he'll work well in a two-man system with Joelinton. I think Steve Bruce, from what I've seen, he plays a lot of 4-4-1-1 sometimes. I think if you have a sort of clean 4-4-2, let's say, with Joelinton and Callum Wilson, I think that could work really, really well together. I think they could work really well, because Joelinton is very good at holding up the ball. He may not have the goal-scoring production, but he is very good at holding up the ball and getting others into play. And we saw that a lot with Almiron, with Saint-Maximin as well. So I think they could really do well. And obviously, Wilson playing around Joelinton, making runs across into channels and stuff like that. So I just think Joelinton and Wilson as a pairing, if it's used right, it could work really well. And in Steve Bruce's system, I think it can. They've obviously got the Longstaff brothers as well, whom I expect to see more of this season, both Matty and Sean Longstaff. Almiron, Alan Saint-Maximin, I think they're going to be fixtures in the side. I don't think Newcastle will be anywhere close to relegation like a lot of people are saying. I think they've got a team that's really, really good. And Mike Ashley this season has somehow not been afraid to spend money. Ryan Fraser and Callum Wilson, that's a partnership that could work. Ryan Fraser offers a lot from midfield for a mid-table team in a creative sense. So I think Newcastle will sort of end up in 12th, maybe even nick a top half spot, a top 10 spot. You never know. Crystal Palace, I think, is going to finish 11th, and it's just because they've got a very good. They've got they've established the way they play under Roy Hodgson. I had doubts about Crystal Palace when Roy Hodgson signed. I think I expected them to be sort of not survive really well, but he's got a very pragmatic way of playing. You can call it defensive football, boring football, park the bus football, whatever, but it is a pragmatic way for a mid-table team. Now, I'm not saying you can't survive if you play like Brighton, for example, or Southampton, for example. But it's just Crystal Palace have a way of doing things, and it suits them. Obviously, Wilfred Zaha didn't exactly have the best season last year, uh, but I think this year the signings they've made, Nathan Ferguson from West Brom and Eberechi Eze from QPR, I think these two are going to be really, really good. They're going to add a little bit of creativity to the front three. Jordan Ayew as well, I think, is there. So that's a side that could get exciting on the counter attack, and that is a team that I think would challenge for a top 10 spot. Now, I've personally put them at 11th. But I think that is a team that could potentially end up in a top 10 spot. Sheffield United is the team that I've put at 10th. And I know this is quite surprising because given the way they played and the way they've performed last year, and for a while they were in contention for a European spot. But I think the COVID break did more to harm Sheffield than help them, because momentum is a very key thing in football. Obviously, all of us who follow the sport know that. And I just felt like Sheffield lost a lot of momentum going into the restart. So for me, Sheffield United finished 10th because I think they've not been as good, and I think this has not been a preseason in its traditional sense for a lot of teams. And I think Sheffield United, it's not exactly a clean slate for teams to start with. So I think Sheffield United finished 10th. They have a good team, let's not get that wrong. But and one more key thing is I think Dean Henderson's going to be big. Not being there. Obviously, they've signed Aaron Ramsdale, but I just think Dean Henderson was much better than Aaron Ramsdale was or will be for Sheffield United, and I think they are. I can't see Sheffield sort of. I can't see Sheffield being above the teams that I've got above them. I just can't say. Maybe they might get the occasional result, but I think overall, over 38 games, I just think Sheffield United will end up in 10th. Obviously, they've signed Wes Foderingham as well. Ethan Ampadu from Chelsea is on loan there, so it'll be an interesting season. Max Lowe is a good signing from Derby County. It'll be an interesting season for them, but I think the Gulf. I keep saying the Gulf in quality. And that is true. The difference between them and the sides above them, I think just it's a bridge too far, I think. And speaking of the sides above them, in 9th place, I've got Everton. Now, Everton's midfield, at this point in time, they've confirmed that they've signed James Rodriguez, they've signed Alan, they've signed Abdoulaye Doucouré. I think that midfield is really, really good. I think on the basis of that midfield alone, they could easily be a top 7 side. But I just don't have confidence in Jordan Pickford, and I don't have confidence in that backline. And Michael Keane is all right. Lucas Digne is vulnerable at times. And there have been times where the backline has sort of let them down. And I just don't see, in comparison to the teams in 7th and 8th, whom I think Everton will be competing with, for that last Europa League spot. In comparison to that, in terms of midfield, I think they've got a midfield that can stay with those teams. I just don't see them beating the teams above them. And, for me, and you can say my opinion is a little colored as a Liverpool fan, and I don't want to see Everton get into the top 7. That's not really true because, we're fighting for the title. Everton's sort of hoping they can make the Europa League. So we're not really in the same stratosphere at this point. But what I will say is I think Everton has a good team. They have a good vision. They have a good manager. So they could punch above their weight. They could finish higher than 9th. But I've got them in 9th personally because, I just don't think, looking at that backline, looking at Jordan Pickford, especially Jordan Pickford, I mean, to say that this guy is the England number 1 is honestly embarrassing. Over Nick Pope, over Dean Henderson, I just don't think he's good enough for Everton. He's made a lot of mistakes last year. He's not had a great year. I just don't think that backline doesn't inspire confidence in me to say Everton can definitely finish in a Europa League spot. In 8th place, I've got Wolverhampton. Wolves, Wolverhampton, whatever you want to call them. Wolves, I think, will finish in the top 8. Got them just missing out on the Europa League places. They've signed Fabio Silva as well. Brilliant signing, I can't lie. £40 million, maybe a little bit on the higher side. It's a little bit of a gamble, but the thing is, with Wolves, that's not the area that I thought they would want to strengthen, especially when they've just lost, Matt Doherty to Tottenham. So I just didn't think that was the area they would strengthen. I thought, if anything, they're going to strengthen the back line. They did sign Fernando Marcal from Lyon. So he's got an experience. He's a centre back who can play right back. But I just don't see Matt Doherty's role being filled up by Marcal or even Vinagre. I just don't think they're that good. For me personally, I think I mean, Wolves, again, it's the back line. With Everton and Wolves, it's just the back line that doesn't inspire confidence. Now, Rui Patricio, in my opinion, I think he's a better keeper. So I think he should be doing quite well. It's just that backline doesn't exactly inspire confidence in me. Now, Wolves will score more goals, I think, because on the strength of their front line alone, Jota, Neto, Jimenez, Adama Traore, I think these guys are just going to be really, really good. And I think they're going to score more goals than Everton will. And I think that's solely the reason that's going to put them above the Toffees, really. In 7th place, I've got Leicester. Now, Leicester's in a weird position because I think they've got a good team to challenge for top 6, and I think they can. But it's just Brendan Rodgers that I have a doubt about. Now, his style really works with Leicester. If there's one team in the league that plays really well with the way he plays, I think it's Leicester. They've got really creative players. James Maddison is there. They've got Jamie Vardy, who's obviously a top-class goal scorer. They have lost Ben Chilwell, whom I think is a bigger loss than people realize. They've got Timothy Castagne from Atalanta to replace him. He can play right back and left back. They've got James Justin coming through as well. So I think as good as Castagne is, and he is really good, it's just I don't see him being on the level of Ben Chilwell. Now, I could be wrong, but having watched him at Atalanta, I just didn't feel like he's as good as Chilwell was for Leicester. Now, it's a big step for Leicester, I think, if they can get to the Champions League, if they can challenge for Champions League spots again. But I think with Brendan Rodgers, it's just consistency has always been an issue for Brendan Rodgers teams, except for Celtic, obviously. But when you talk about Liverpool back in 2013-14, and then you talk about Leicester last year, I think the collapse that Leicester had, Man United, Tottenham, and Chelsea didn't have amazing runs, let's say. It was not like all of them went on a 10-game winning streak or something. Leicester just collapsed really badly, and that is not something that inspires confidence if I'm a Leicester fan. So personally, I think Leicester will finish 7th. Now for the top 6, you might have already guessed, it's going to be the traditional sort of quote-unquote traditional top 6. I'm going to divide the top 6 into 2. I think one is going to be the fight for the 4th spot, and the other is going to be the title fight. So for me, the fight between Man United, Tottenham, and Arsenal will be for the 4th spot. Leicester could maybe get involved if they have a little bit of luck, and if Jamie Vardy keeps firing, although he is about to turn 34 this year. So I don't know how long his legs can keep him going, but, we'll see. I think, personally, Man United, Tottenham, and Arsenal, if I look at their teams, I think each of them individually has the potential to finish 4th. A lot of it, I think, is going to come down to defense and coaching. And for me, I'm going to put Arsenal in 6th. And obviously, this is a disappointment because now, if you're an Arsenal fan, you know that I'm going to put Tottenham above you at some point. But I think Arsenal will finish 6th. And looking at sort of the backlines, now I know Tottenham's backline is fragile. Man United's backline is fragile. But looking at Arsenal, you've either got very inexperienced players like William Saliba, and I mean inexperienced in terms of age, in terms of inexperience of playing in the Premier League. You've got Pablo Mari, who is experienced, but he's not in the Premier League. He's not played much in the Premier League. Or you've got Premier League experienced defenders, but defenders who make a lot of mistakes. You've got Mustafi, you've got David Luiz, for example. So now Arsenal, I can't lie. In the Community Shield, they were quite impressive. So I'm not, saying they cannot play well or they're not capable of finishing in the top four. They are. I just don't see them having the quality to sustain a top four run, especially if Man United and Tottenham are also on their heels. And that's not to say that their front three can't fire, because going up forward, Arsenal is really, really good. It's just at the back of I have more concerns. Let me put it this way: I have more concerns about Arsenal than I would about Tottenham and Man United, and that's kind of the reason that I'm putting them below. Now, over the subsequent next few seasons, I think Arsenal will get better. I think Arteta's got them playing in a certain way, which is really attractive, really solid. In some ways, it does mirror Pep Guardiola. Obviously, his influence has to be there. But in other ways, I think Arteta's put his own stamp on the team as well. So that's going to be a little bit... I think Arsenal is going to finish sixth, but if someone has them at fifth or fourth, I won't be too mad about it. In fifth place, I have Tottenham, just about missing out on the Champions League spot. And again, it's the defense. And I know what you're thinking, because, Man United haven't looked very solid with Maguire and Lindelof there. And, in defensive midfield, there's still questions. Donny van de Beek can defend, but he's not, a defensive midfielder. So are you going to stick with McTominay there? Are you going to stick with an aging Nemanja Matic there? Pogba doesn't defend. Bruno Fernandes doesn't defend. So I can see why, people might have Tottenham ahead of Man United, because at least with Tottenham, they've signed Pierre-Emile Højbjerg from Southampton, who is going to break up play. Eric Dyer's had a new lease of life since Jose Mourinho's come in. I just think with Tottenham, the centre-backs that they have, whether it's Tanganga, whether it's Alderweireld, whoever it is, compared to, I think, Maguire and Lindelof, I think they're still maybe just a little bit short. But that being said, another reason I put Tottenham behind Man United was because you need Harry Kane to fire pretty much every game, and you need Dele Alli to play well every game. You need Son to play well every game. Whereas Man United, I think on paper, if you look at them, they have an overall better squad going forward, midfield onwards. We've got Pogba, if he decides to play well, Bruno Fernandes, you've got Mason Greenwood, who's been a revelation since he's come in. And then you've got Marcus Rashford, who's as talented as anyone can be at that age. Anthony Martial, who, he's a hit and miss sometimes, but he does tend to hit form and when he does hit form, he's really good. And so I think Man United Man United will finish fourth purely on the basis of their offensive abilities as opposed to their defensive abilities. Now, Jose Mourinho, I think, is a better coach than Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. So, I mean, it's really a toss-up. I've put Tottenham in fifth, but I can easily see them finishing fourth, in my opinion. And then, like I said, so yeah, like I said, Man United fourth, Tottenham fifth. The title fight, I've put it down as the top three. Obviously, we all know which three teams I'm talking about. In third place, I think it's pretty obvious. I've put Chelsea down. Chelsea have been the talk of this transfer window, I think, because obviously they've signed so many players: Thiago Silva, Ben Chilwell, Kai Havertz, Timo Werner. I think they've upgraded their squad massively. I think Werner is a massive upgrade on Tammy Abraham and Olivier Giroud. I think Ben Chilwell is an upgrade on Emerson. Hakim Ziyech as well is there. Malang Sarr is there. So they've got, and Thiago Silva brings an experience to their backline that I think they've not had as much. He'll have a lot to teach Tomori. He'll have a lot to teach Kurt Zouma as well. So I think personally Chelsea are well clear of Man United, Tottenham and Arsenal. I don't see them getting involved too much in that fight for fourth. And, I think the only reason I've put Chelsea down as third this year is because they're well clear of fourth, one. And the second point is, I think it's going to take a little bit of time for these guys to gel as a team, because you're talking a lot of changes in the first 11, because you're not going to buy Timo Werner to bench him. You're not going to buy Thiago Silva to bench him. You're not going to buy Ben Chilwell to bench him. So for me, at least three, if not four, with Kai Havertz, at least three of these players are going to be in the first 11, and that's going to take a little bit of time to adjust to. Now, how they start the season is going to be very, very crucial. And I think the second game against Liverpool will be a true test of their ability. I think Chelsea will be in a title race initially if they start well, but I think later on, with teams like City and Liverpool having more experience, I think Chelsea will sort of drop off a little bit. I think they'll be well clear of fourth. I think maybe an outside title challenge is possible, if I can call it that. But I just don't see Chelsea this year being in the thick of it. Number two, Manchester City. Now, this is, I can't lie, the analyst in me wants to say, I was talking to Ben, and in the previous episode, and I told Ben, the analyst in me wants to say City first, Liverpool second, but this is a Liverpool podcast. I am a Liverpool fan, so I'm going to say City second. I think injuries are going to be key for Manchester City, and I mean that not just because of last season when Aymeric Laporte got injured for a very, very long time, and that did contribute to them not having as much of a title challenge. They've already got Nathan Ake there as a left-footed centre-back. I think he's going to be a backup because they are rumoured to be signing Kalidou Koulibaly as well. Now, there's a lot of variables in that defence. You need Koulibaly to be what Van Dijk is to Liverpool. I think that is when Man City will be really, really threatening. And from what I've seen for Koulibaly with Napoli as well, he's a very good defender, but I just don't see what I guess most people in the world see. And I'm not, saying that because he's rumored to be coming to City or whatever. It's just he's really good, and he will definitely be an upgrade on what City has currently at this point. And him and Laporte could very well end up being a very formidable partnership. But I mean, having watched him at Napoli consistently last year, I think he's still maybe not the best. Even if he joins City, I don't think he'll be the best defender at City. I think Laporte will still be the best defender at City. And, he needs to be really, really good. He needs to adapt really well to the Premier League. The Premier League is obviously much faster than the Serie A, much more physical as well. And to be fair, though, like when I watched Van Dijk at Southampton, I didn't get the same vibes that I get from him at Liverpool. So, it's not to say that I can't be wrong about Koulibaly, but that being said and done, they've strengthened in areas that need to be strengthened in. Ferran Torres, obviously talented youngster coming in from Valencia, played really well in the international break for Spain as well. So Man City, if you look at it objectively, I think a lot of people would have Man City first, and with good reason. For me, Liverpool would be first because they've been really, really good. One thing that is concerning to me, however, is how badly we bottled up a 100-point season last year. We won the title, sure, but 100 points was there for the taking. Like, we were just well on our way there, and we just bottled it. And the way we've been sluggish through preseason, the way we've been sluggish against Arsenal, it gives me cause for concern. It gives me a lot of cause for concern. So how we start the season against Leeds, against Chelsea, against Arsenal, again, that's going to be key. The start is going to be key for all three of the title rivals, City, Chelsea, and Liverpool. I think the momentum is going to be very key after the first few games and going into the second international break of the season, I guess nowadays. That's going to be very, very crucial. So I've put Liverpool down as first, Man City as second. I think if Liverpool sign Thiago Alcantara, I think that adds a dimension to the midfield that will give City a lot more to think about. I think he's someone who's very creative, plays through the lines. He's, he can find the pass where nobody else can. I just think he'd be a massive improvement on what we have. And even if Gini Wijnaldum does go to Barcelona, as is rumored, I think Liverpool are going to be much better off if they get Thiago than if they don't. But yeah, that would be my prediction for the Premier League 2020-2021 season. We'll see how much of an idiot I look at the end of the year. So, got Liverpool in first, Manchester City in second, Chelsea in third, Man United in fourth, Tottenham in fifth, Arsenal in sixth, Leicester in seventh, Wolves in eighth, Everton in ninth, Sheffield United in 10th, Crystal Palace in 11th, Newcastle United in 12th, Burnley in 13th, Southampton in 14th, Leeds United in 15th, West Ham United in 16th, Brighton and Hove Albion in 17th, West Brom, Aston Villa and Fulham to bring up the relegation spots, unfortunately. But there you have it. We'll have hopefully another episode of the podcast before the Leeds game, previewing the Leeds game as well. And I guess that pretty much brings us to a close this episode. I didn't expect this episode to go as long as it did, but I had to go through all the teams. I had to go through why I think each team would finish where it does, and that's what I guess doing a podcast is all about. It's about 41 minutes long, which is normal for a podcast, so I'll just leave it there. And hopefully you guys have a good day. Stay safe. If you're in England, cases are rising as well. Stay safe, stay indoors, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.